The Diddy trial has just begun, and it's already falling apart. A key witness has vanished without a trace. A juror wants out. Federal agents are scrambling behind the scenes. What was supposed to be a methodical prosecution of one of hip-hop's most powerful moguls is rapidly descending into a legal firestorm. And that's before Cassie takes the stand, before the secret footage drops, and before the government unleashes its next wave of charges. If you thought this case was going to be clean or quiet, think again, because everything is unraveling and fast. The courtroom hadn't even settled when everything began to unravel. Cameras were rolling, reporters were whispering, and legal teams braced for opening statements. But behind the scenes, chaos was already creeping in. One of the prosecution's most crucial witnesses, identified only as Victim 3, has vanished without a trace. Her phone is off. Her lawyers can't reach her. And with every passing hour, panic builds inside the prosecution's war room. This isn't just a scheduling hiccup. Victim 3 was expected to deliver testimony that could have anchored the case from day one, tying together a decade's worth of allegations with her first-hand account. Her sudden disappearance has thrown the prosecution's carefully crafted timeline into jeopardy and sent federal investigators scrambling to find her. But that wasn't the only shock of the morning. Just as jury selection wrapped, one of the seated jurors privately asked to be dismissed, citing personal safety concerns. That alone sent a ripple of anxiety through the courtroom. For a juror to bow out this early, before any witness has even spoken, signals just how intense and potentially dangerous this trial may be. Now, whispers are growing louder. Is someone pulling strings behind the scenes? Was Victim 3 silenced by fear, by pressure, or by something far more sinister? What we're seeing isn't just courtroom drama. It's a high-stakes meltdown, and the trial has barely begun. Victim 3 wasn't just another name on the witness list. She was the linchpin in the prosecution's timeline. Her story spans over a decade and ties directly into the inner workings of Diddy's alleged operation. According to sealed documents and insider sources, she was expected to testify about multiple incidents of trafficking, coercion, and violence that occurred in several states. More importantly, her testimony was rumored to implicate not just Diddy, but others within his close circle. She was the connective tissue between the past and present, the known and the hidden. Her words were meant to thread together years of fragmented allegations and help the jury see the bigger picture, that this wasn't just about isolated incidents, but an organized pattern of abuse protected by wealth and power. Now that she's disappeared, that strategy is in shambles. Legal analysts are calling this a catastrophic blow to the case. Former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani told media outlets, "When your star witness vanishes, it forces the entire case into a defensive crouch. The jury starts questioning the strength of your evidence, and the defense gains leverage they never expected." Some analysts say it could open the door for Diddy's legal team to argue prosecutorial overreach or cast doubt on the credibility of all remaining witnesses. Others fear this could trigger a domino effect, where other victims or witnesses lose confidence in the system's ability to protect them. Because let's be honest, fear doesn't just live in the shadows. It thrives in high-profile trials like this. The speculation is rampant. Did Victim 3 back out voluntarily out of emotional distress? Did she receive threats? Was there coercion behind the scenes, subtle or otherwise? There are even whispers of hush money being offered, though nothing has been confirmed. What is clear is that her absence didn't happen in a vacuum. Sources close to the case claim she was growing increasingly anxious in the days leading up to her scheduled appearance. One insider said she was scared, really scared, and nobody knew what exactly changed, but something did. Whether her silence was bought, forced, or chosen out of fear, it speaks volumes. Because when a star witness disappears in a case this big, it's never just a coincidence. It's a warning shot. For 2 decades, spanning from 2004 to 2024, Sean Diddy Combs wasn't just a music mogul. He was the cultural gatekeeper. Behind the platinum records and high-end fashion labels was a man who built an empire rooted in visibility, wealth, and control. Everyone from rising artists to Fortune 500 executives wanted his stamp of approval. And that kind of influence doesn't just open doors, it shuts people up. It cultivates silence, breeds fear, and makes accountability a moving target. From Ciroc to Bad Boy Records, Revolt TV to his countless celebrity friendships, Diddy embedded himself into nearly every facet of black celebrity culture and leveraged that influence like currency. He wasn't just famous. He was powerful, untouchable. So when the allegations finally caught up with him, many in the legal world quietly asked, can he actually be held accountable? Because prosecuting someone like Diddy isn't just about presenting facts. It's about piercing through a fortress of image, intimidation, and institutional complicity. Federal agents familiar with celebrity cases have said that bringing down a figure like Diddy is exponentially harder than prosecuting an average offender. Why? Because every witness is walking a tightrope, risking their reputation, safety, and future in exchange for truth. An internal FBI memo on celebrity-targeted trafficking cases noted that high-profile defendants often possess layers of financial insulation and social capital that discourage cooperation from victims and witnesses. Translation: when someone like Diddy is on trial, people disappear. In fact, one former FBI profiler who's worked on trafficking cases involving entertainers told us, the fear is real. These aren't just rich defendants. They're cultural architects. That makes victims second-guess themselves. And it makes witnesses think twice or go silent altogether. That fear isn't theoretical, it's operational. Diddy's legal team is stacked with some of the most expensive, aggressive attorneys in the country. Their job isn't just to defend, it's to discredit, delay, and dismantle. To weaponize doubt. Every subpoena, every press statement, every legal threat carries weight. And witnesses feel that, especially those with less power, fewer resources, or a painful past they never wanted to make public. So when victim 3 vanished just before trial, no one was truly shocked. Saddened, yes. Alarmed, absolutely. But surprised? Not all. Because this is the pattern. This is the pressure. This is what happens when someone who's built an empire on influence faces real consequences for the first time. And it begs the question, can justice ever prevail when fame stands in its way? Or is the machine simply too powerful to break? The disappearance of victim 3 isn't just a logistical nightmare for prosecutors. It's a chilling reminder of what fear really looks like in the world of celebrity crime. Because while the public sees headlines and hashtags, victims and witnesses live something far darker. The kind of fear that follows you home, shows up in your DMs, and never quite leaves your mind. Yes, the federal government offers witness protection, but let's be real. In cases like this, that protection is only as good as the silence it buys. And when you're up against a man with Diddy's money, reach, and reputation, silence becomes a currency, and fear becomes the price. According to one source close to the investigation, victim 3 had been offered relocation and anonymity. But still, she vanished. Because sometimes it's not about what the system offers. It's about what the streets, the industry, and the internet threaten to take away. And it's not paranoia if it's happened before. Victims in high-profile cases have been doxxed, harassed, stalked, and in some instances, mysteriously recanted their statements after sudden windfalls or settlements. The whispers don't stop when a lawsuit gets filed. They start. Anonymous burner accounts slide into Instagram comments. Old acquaintances start reaching out just to talk. And every post, every tweet, every paparazzi photo becomes a source of dread. Who's watching me? Who's listening? What if they know where I am? This isn't just intimidation. It's psychological warfare. Federal prosecutors know that fear like this can undo entire cases. The DOJ's own internal guidelines admit that witness reluctance, especially in organized or celebrity-involved crime, often leads to weakened prosecution, mistrials, or dropped charges. When one witness disappears, it sends a message to the rest. You're next. And that message spreads fast. Social media becomes a minefield. Reddit threads speculate. TikTokers drop conspiracy-laced videos. Fake accounts go viral with insider tea that puts victims at even greater risk. People start doubting the story, not because it isn't true, but because the truth is too dangerous to say out loud. It's the ripple effect. Victim 3 goes missing, and suddenly victim 2 starts thinking twice. Witness 5 stops returning calls. A former assistant with critical knowledge suddenly gets a new gig across the country and can't testify. Slowly, quietly, the case starts to collapse under the weight of fear. Not because the evidence isn't strong, but because silence is stronger. This is the cost of taking on a giant. Not just lawsuits and media smears, but the kind of invisible, intimate terror that no courtroom can fix. Because in cases like this, justice doesn't die with a verdict. It dies in the silence that comes before it. As the walls close in on Sean Diddy Combs, the courtroom is becoming just as dramatic as the headlines. And now, prosecutors are accusing Diddy of something even more sinister than denial: active interference. According to court filings obtained by insiders, Diddy allegedly tried to influence public perception even while under federal investigation. He's been accused of using close associates, PR agents, former employees, and even celebrity friends to quietly draft and distribute statements meant to discredit victims and minimize the severity of the allegations. One leaked memo from a Revolt TV executive reportedly contains talking points ghostwritten by someone in Diddy's inner circle. Talking points that appeared, almost word for word, in tweets and press releases defending him in early 2024. Prosecutors say this isn't just a PR strategy. It's witness tampering disguised as spin. And the government's making it clear they're watching. But that's not even the biggest bombshell. Because behind closed doors, Diddy's legal team has been fighting tooth and nail to block what they're calling the freak-off footage from being entered into evidence. This is the video evidence reportedly seized during the Homeland Security raid. Material that multiple insiders claim shows disturbing, potentially criminal behavior tied to the now infamous freak-off parties. Diddy's lawyers argue the footage was obtained in an overbroad sweep, violating privacy laws and infringing on unrelated individuals caught on tape. But prosecutors fired back, stating that the footage was lawfully seized under warrant, directly related to the trafficking and abuse allegations, and crucial to the prosecution's case. And now, the judge has made a critical ruling. The footage will be admitted. That means jurors will see what Diddy and his team desperately try to keep buried. The videos, described in sealed documents as highly graphic and corroborative of multiple victim statements, are now fair game in open court. This ruling could reshape the entire trial. Because if the prosecution can tie names, faces, and actions to the scenes in that footage, Diddy's defense strategy crumbles. The plausible deniability, the media deflection, the years of curated image, it all starts to unravel. This isn't just a fight for freedom anymore. It's a fight over what the public will see, what the jury will hear, and how far influence can stretch before it breaks under the weight of evidence. Cassie Ventura may no longer be the centerpiece of Diddy's personal life, but in this trial, she's become something far more powerful, a symbol. A symbol of what prosecutors say was years of manipulation, control, and private torment. And with her name on the lawsuit that cracked this case wide open, every new development in her life echoes in the courtroom, including her pregnancy. Yes, Cassie is expecting. And while she's moved on publicly, privately, prosecutors are leveraging her new chapter as part of a powerful narrative, the survivor who got away. According to insiders close to the legal team, Cassie's emotional testimony, backed by sealed affidavits, unreleased footage, and therapy records, paint a chilling picture of psychological abuse, coercion, and fear. They're not just presenting her as a victim. They're framing her as the first domino to fall in a much larger pattern. And here's where it gets strategic. Prosecutors reportedly plan to show archived video footage from a hotel surveillance system, footage that allegedly captures a now infamous altercation between Cassie and Diddy. Sources familiar with the case say the video is brief but damning, showing a physical confrontation followed by what appears to be Cassie retreating to a separate room in visible distress. This moment, previously just a rumor in tabloid circuits, is now poised to be a cornerstone of the government's emotional appeal. They want the jury to feel Cassie's fear, to see her trapped, to understand why so many other women stayed silent. But the defense? They see Cassie very differently. Diddy's lawyers have launched a quiet, calculated campaign to discredit her from the inside out. Court documents show they're requesting access to Cassie's medical history, relationship records, and even her financial ties to other alleged victims. Their angle? That she's not a traumatized survivor, but a disgruntled ex riding a wave of bad press and using her pregnancy for optics. They're also circulating evidence of Cassie's NDA agreements and private messages to suggest complicity, not coercion. In one motion, the defense claimed Cassie maintained contact and financial dependency long after the alleged abuse, suggesting that any trauma claims are revisionist. But here's where it gets messy. Public sentiment is not on Diddy's side. Cassie's quiet grace, her pregnancy, her consistent refusal to engage in media theatrics, it's made her credible. And in a courtroom, where perception matters almost as much as fact, that credibility is priceless. So the battle lines are drawn. The prosecution wants Cassie to be the face of survival. The defense wants her to be the face of doubt. And caught in the middle is a woman trying to protect her peace, raise her child, and escape a shadow she's been running from for over a decade. In the end, whether Cassie wins or loses in court may not matter nearly as much as how her story lands with the jury. Because in a case defined by fear, power, and silence, Cassie's voice may be the one that breaks through. In a twist that's left both legal experts and Hollywood insiders stunned, Sean Diddy Combs has reportedly rejected a quiet plea deal that could have cut his prison time dramatically. According to sources close to the federal investigation, prosecutors floated a deal behind closed doors. No more than 12 years, parole eligibility, asset protections, and full immunity for his children and business partners, in exchange for a guilty plea on racketeering and obstruction charges. But Diddy said no. Why? That's the billion-dollar question. Because to most people, especially those watching the walls close in, this deal was a golden parachute, a way out of what could easily become a 30-plus year sentence. But insiders say Diddy's refusal wasn't just ego, it was strategy. A desperate bet that the government doesn't have the full hand it claims. Sources say Diddy's camp believes that the so-called freak-off footage is too fragmented to hold up in court. They argue the seized devices contain clips without context, scenes filmed without consent, and faces that can't be conclusively identified. And more importantly, they think the longer they drag this out, the more leverage they'll gain in the court of public opinion. One Diddy associate allegedly told a friend, "You don't fold when the cards are still moving." But prosecutors? They're not bluffing. Since rejecting the plea, Diddy has received multiple warnings through official filings. More charges are coming. Legal analysts say we could soon see money laundering counts, additional trafficking enhancements, and even conspiracy to obstruct justice if any evidence shows he coached witnesses or tampered with surveillance. And there's one especially chilling rumor floating among court reporters, that one of Diddy's former assistants has flipped, providing new evidence that could link Diddy directly to threats, coercion, and possible payoffs used to keep victims silent. If true, the next indictment could triple his risk, financially, legally, and publicly. So what's the play here? Why gamble when you're already bleeding? Some believe Diddy is betting on mistrial, that his legal team can overwhelm the jury with technicalities, crush key testimony with aggressive cross-examination, and chip away at the credibility of each accuser, especially the ones tied to settlements. Others think it's pride, that after 3 decades of power, fame, and unchecked control, Diddy can't imagine himself in an orange jumpsuit. But the prosecutors? They've been building this case for years. And with every delay, they're gathering more. More statements, more footage, more allies flipping behind scenes. And now that the deal is off the table, they're preparing to go nuclear. If you thought the criminal investigation into Sean Diddy Combs was the main event, think again. Because down in Florida, a quiet civil lawsuit is turning into a full-blown detonation, with implications that could leave the music industry scorched beyond recognition. At the center of this legal earthquake, a name you're about to hear a lot more of, Joseph Menzero. Menzero isn't a celebrity. He's not a rapper, producer, or influencer. He's a survivor, a man who claims that as a teenager, he was lured, exploited, and trafficked within a powerful entertainment ring tied directly to Combs and his network of insiders. But what makes Menzero's case different, what makes it dangerous, is that he's not alone. According to documents filed with the Southern District of Florida, over 400 potential claimants have been identified, many of them male, many of them alleging eerily similar stories of coercion, drugs, secret parties, NDAs, and threats. And the attorney leading this charge? None other than Andrew Van Arsdale, the same legal powerhouse who took on USA Gymnastics and cracked open the Boy Scouts of America abuse scandal. Van Arsdale has quietly assembled what he's calling a survivor coalition made up of former dancers, assistants, couriers, models, and even industry interns, many of whom were minors when the alleged abuse occurred. And here's where it gets radioactive. The civil complaint names not just Diddy, but Bad Boy Entertainment, Revolt TV, and several music industry figures as co-defendants and material witnesses. According to sources with direct knowledge of the filing, the list of potential celebrity witnesses and alleged enablers includes A-list rappers who were present at the infamous freak-off mansion parties in Los Angeles, Atlanta, and the Bahamas. Former reality TV stars who allegedly helped recruit fresh talent. 2 high-profile executives at Def Jam and Universal Music Group, whose emails reportedly appear in subpoenaed correspondence. And most explosively, at least 3 household name artists who were allegedly victims themselves, but remained silent to protect their careers. Court insiders say the plaintiff's legal team has been meticulously cross-referencing NDAs, flight logs, text messages, and security footage pulled from seized devices to corroborate the survivor stories. And it doesn't stop there. Joseph Menzero's testimony, reviewed in part through leaked deposition prep materials, outlines a network of handlers, middlemen who operated like gatekeepers, ferrying young men and women to parties under the promise of mentorship, deals, and fame. Once inside, Menzero alleges they were subjected to a routine of drugs, filmed encounters, and hush payments. And when they tried to leave, threats, surveillance, silence. But perhaps the most disturbing part of this civil suit is what's happening off paper, the fear of retaliation. Multiple potential plaintiffs have requested anonymity and out-of-state relocations. One witness was allegedly followed after leaving Van Arsdale's office in Miami. Another, a former studio intern, was warned in a DM that he was talking too much after liking a post related to the lawsuit. Van Arsdale isn't taking it lightly. He's filed for federal protection measures, citing credible threats, and is coordinating with the DOJ to provide temporary safe houses for key witnesses. In a recent interview, he said, "What we're uncovering isn't just a civil matter. It's systemic. It's criminal. And it stretches far beyond Diddy." And he might be right. The ripple effects of this lawsuit are already being felt across the entertainment world. Executives are lawyering up. Talent agencies are re-auditing contracts. At least one major streaming platform has paused an upcoming documentary tied to a former Bad Boy artist, pending further developments. And what about Diddy? His legal team is trying to get the civil suit dismissed, calling it sensationalized, unfounded, and a media play designed to poison a jury pool. But the documents say otherwise. With hundreds of pages of declarations, videos, financial records, and internal emails, this is shaping up to be the largest civil trafficking case in modern entertainment history. And here's the kicker. Because it's a civil suit, the burden of proof is lower than in criminal court, meaning Van Arsdale doesn't need to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. He just has to prove it's more likely than not that Diddy and his affiliates enabled or participated in this system of abuse. If he succeeds, Diddy could face massive financial ruin, permanent industry exile, and a public reckoning that makes the fall of R. Kelly and Harvey Weinstein look tame by comparison. Because this isn't just about one man. This is about an empire built on silence, fear, and exploitation, now crumbling under the weight of 400 voices refusing to be quiet any longer. And Joseph Min-Zero? He may not have had power when he was 15, but now he's the one shaking the foundations. If you thought this was just another celebrity scandal spiraling out of control, think again. Because what's unfolding behind courtroom doors and in sealed federal filings is starting to resemble something far more sinister than tabloid fodder. It's not just about Diddy anymore. It's about an alleged system, one dressed up in money, music, and manipulation. Let's talk about what's not being said publicly. According to multiple legal insiders with direct ties to the Southern District of New York and Florida filings, a trove of sealed documents has become the most tightly guarded secret in the Diddy investigation. These are not your average legal submissions. We're talking sealed surveillance logs, unreleased witness depositions, metadata from burner phones, and even confiscated footage for what insiders are calling costume parties. Yes, costumed. And this isn't some quirky dress-up event. These parties, allegedly thrown at Diddy's homes in Los Angeles, Miami, and a secluded Bahamas estate, featured guests dressed in elaborate disguises, animal masks, leather gear, vintage film character costumes, and in one particularly disturbing account, outfits mimicking school uniforms. What appear to be lavish, hedonistic entertainment at first glance now stands accused of being elaborately staged environments for power dynamics, coercion, and recording illicit content. According to multiple former staffers and a whistleblower videographer, these events were not spontaneous or playful. They were planned. There were guest lists, code names, rooms designated for performances, surveillance pre-checks, and cameras everywhere. And here's where things turn from unsettling to strategic. The legal team prosecuting Diddy has reportedly built a map of connections using these party videos, linking not only alleged victims and traffickers, but co-conspirators across multiple cities. One courtroom source described it as a social web of silence, featuring stylists, assistants, and music executives who either looked the other way or played a part. One assistant's sealed deposition reportedly includes a handwritten ledger, a record of travel, incident reports, and unmarked expenses tied to certain parties. This ledger, if verified, could anchor the claim that Diddy wasn't acting alone and that Bad Boy Entertainment may have functioned, at times, like a front for a broader, organized operation. So why haven't we seen this on the news? Because the Department of Justice requested multiple layers of redaction and suppression, citing ongoing investigative procedures involving multi-state trafficking and conspiracy charges. In other words, this isn't just about Diddy's behavior. It's about an entire network being quietly dismantled. And that silence? It's starting to crack. Behind the scenes, Netflix, HBO, and Amazon Studios are all reportedly in a bidding war for the rights to a tell-all documentary being shopped around by a former bodyguard-turned-whistleblower. The pitch, described as Eyes Wide Shut meets Surviving R. Kelly, includes interviews with at least 14 former party guests, 3 of whom are in witness protection. And it doesn't stop there. Multiple social media influencers and former associates have been subpoenaed for private DMs, iCloud backups, and deleted footage. A now deactivated OnlyFans account linked to an unnamed music producer allegedly featured scenes shot at one of the parties. Footage that investigators now claim proves consent was falsified or never obtained. And the biggest twist? A leaked communication between prosecutors and legal counsel for the Recording Academy hints that some of these parties took place during Grammy weekend, meaning the guests weren't just low-level recruits or socialites. They included chart-topping artists, executives, and even journalists. So what happens when the seal breaks? Legal experts predict that if just a fraction of the sealed evidence is made public, especially the video logs, it will not only implode Diddy's legacy, but expose a rot beneath the surface of hip-hop's most glamorous era. This is no longer about whether Diddy did something wrong. It's about whether an entire machine, one that fed off fame, vulnerability, and silence, was built with the help of people who still have careers, power, and control over what the public sees. As one anonymous industry executive reportedly said in a text uncovered by investigators, If that footage ever sees the light of day, half the damn industry goes down with him. And with every whisper, every sealed doc, every cryptic legal motion, one truth becomes more terrifyingly clear. This wasn't a party. It was a production. And the curtain is just starting to rise. In a case already drowning in scandal, silence, and sealed documents, the latest twist may be the most telling of all. Not what's happening in the courtroom, but what's happening behind closed doors within Diddy's own legal team. Because just days ago, without warning, attorney Rico M. Valdez, a key figure in Combs' defense strategy, filed a motion to withdraw as counsel, sending shockwaves through the legal community. Why? Because Valdez wasn't some junior associate. He was the chief architect of Diddy's civil defense posture, overseeing filings, coordinating witness management, and liaising with federal investigators. And yet, he walked away midstream. No press conference, no explanation, just a cold, court-filed motion citing irreconcilable professional circumstances. Translation? Something behind the scenes is burning. Sources close to the case suggest Valdez may have clashed with Combs over the mounting inconsistencies in the civil suits. In the past 10 days alone, at least 2 lawsuits have been quietly withdrawn, with both plaintiffs suddenly going silent and, according to legal records, switching legal representation. One even filed a motion to have all related documents permanently sealed and expunged, a rare move that only happens when serious external pressure or safety concerns come into play. And here's where it gets darker. Whispers within the legal community suggest some plaintiffs are receiving anonymous settlement offers in cash, cryptocurrency, or real estate, while others are allegedly being threatened with countersuits or reputational destruction. Attorneys representing other survivors have started doubling their personal security and pushing for federal witness protection measures, even in civil court. One Miami-based legal analyst went on record saying, "This is starting to look like a multi-front legal siege, not just a defense, a suppression campaign." Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Diddy's new legal hires include a crisis management firm linked to past celebrity scandals and at least one former federal prosecutor now working privately. Their job? According to insiders, mitigate fallout, delay trials, kill stories. But they may be too late. The legal community is already preparing for a prolonged, explosive trial, with more than a dozen seal motions filed just this month, many believed to be attempts to limit discovery or suppress digital evidence. Judges have been rotating to avoid bias. Witnesses are being prepped in secret. And with Rico Valdez gone, it's clear that even Diddy's inner circle is fracturing. When your own attorney walks away, when your accusers start disappearing, and when your court filings are marked by redactions the size of chapters, it stops looking like a defense and starts looking like containment. But the question is, how long can it hold? If you think this saga is nearing its end, think again. Because from what insiders, prosecutors, and federal court observers are saying, the Diddy case is just getting started. And what's coming next might be even more explosive than everything we've already seen. Let's break it down. Right now, legal experts are warning that this trial could stretch on for months, possibly years. Why? Because this isn't a simple case of civil allegations or one-off misconduct. This is a multi-jurisdictional nightmare involving sealed evidence, financial crimes, alleged trafficking networks, and potentially RICO-level charges, and it's only growing more complex by the week. Multiple sources close to the Southern District of New York have confirmed that superseding indictments are likely. That means the feds aren't done. They're just stacking the case, slowly adding more charges, more names, and more evidence. Think of it like building a criminal pyramid. Start at the bottom with lesser-known co-conspirators, flip them for testimony, and then work your way to the top. And right now, Diddy's name is sitting right there at the summit. Meanwhile, federal investigators are still pulling data from encrypted phones, combing through financial ledgers, and cross-referencing guest lists from those now infamous parties. Every new discovery leads to more subpoenas, more sealed depositions, and more panic in Hollywood, Miami, and New York. This isn't just about what Diddy did. It's about who helped him, who stayed silent, and who might be next. And while the legal process drags out behind closed doors, the public's thirst for answers is only intensifying. Social media is ablaze. TikTok detectives are connecting dots faster than journalists. Influencers are reposting court documents, dissecting body language, and tracking every flight, every silence, every whisper. That puts pressure on prosecutors to deliver transparency, but also creates a danger zone for the case itself. Leaks could taint witness credibility. Public opinion could sway jurors. And worst of all, there's the risk that some of the most explosive evidence might never make it into open court if it's deemed too sensitive, too graphic, or too dangerous to national security interests. Yes, you read that right. National security. According to one former federal investigator turned whistleblower, some of the encrypted communications tied to this case have triggered flags at the FBI's cyber division, not just for trafficking, but for potential international violations, suggesting there may be foreign entities or offshore financial networks involved. If true, that pushes this case into a whole new category, transnational criminal enterprise. So what does the road ahead look like? Expect delays, diversions, and dramatic revelations. Expect Diddy's team to file endless motions to dismiss, to seal, to delay. Expect more names to be revealed, more lawsuits to be withdrawn under mysterious circumstances, and more public statement from celebrities trying to distance themselves before the subpoenas start landing in their inboxes. And above all, expect a narrative war. Because what happens next isn't just about law, it's about legacy, about who controls the story, who escapes it, and who gets buried beneath it. So if you're waiting for a Hollywood ending, don't. This isn't the climax. This case is bigger than anyone imagined, and it's far from over. Because no matter how many lawyers drop out, how many lawsuits get sealed, or how many PR teams scramble to rewrite the narrative, the truth has momentum now, and it's not slowing down. We're talking unsealed surveillance footage still waiting to see daylight. Testimony from former employees allegedly tied to everything from hush money drop-offs to party guest logistics. And perhaps most chilling of all, video evidence that's rumored to exist but has been kept tightly under wraps, locked away by NDAs and sealed warrants. And don't forget the celebrity fallout. Names once protected by fame and friendship are starting to drift into the headlines, not as party guests, but as potential witnesses or co-defendants. The industry's silence is starting to crack, and people who once sang Diddy's praises are now ducking interviews, scrubbing their socials, and distancing themselves fast. What happens when those names finally go public? What happens when those tapes finally get played in court? And what happens when the public, armed with receipts, timelines, and a growing sense of betrayal, starts demanding accountability not just from Diddy, but from everyone who helped him get away with it for this long? Because this isn't just a trial. It's a reckoning. In the next chapter, it's going to be louder, messier, and a lot harder to bury. So stay ready, because the truth doesn't stay sealed forever.